Hello friends, and welcome back to another tutorial. This is part of our Staying Creative at Home with Minimal Art Supplies series, and we are so thrilled that you're joining us again for another installment. Or if this is your first one, please go and check out our other tutorials. So thank you for joining us. Today we are going to be talking about soft pastels. Soft pastels is one of my favorite mediums to work in, and they are quite versatile, and you can achieve some very beautiful looking techniques or effects with the soft pastels. In this tutorial, we're going to be covering some very basic soft pastel techniques, kind of focus more on beginners for people that have never tried soft pastels or just learning how to use soft pastels. We normally stick to materials that you might have at home. I realize that not everybody would have soft pastels, but hopefully if you are interested in using soft pastels, you'll find some useful techniques here, and you'll get your own small starter set and experiment with them at home. You know, it is summertime, we have a little bit of extra time, so maybe you can do a little bit of creative reflection using some of these art techniques. All right, let's get into it. Before we get too far, I want to review some of the materials that you will need. So in front of me, I have a set of soft pastels. As you can see, it's a use set because I use them quite a bit. And also I have some paper towels, drawing paper, and a piece of, or excuse me, a roll of tape. The roll of tape is going to be for creating a stump. I've talked about stumps before, and this is a blending tool, and you can buy a stump, but it's so easy to make one out of a paper towel or a piece of toilet paper even, or a tissue, that it's really like a waste of money in my opinion. But they do work, and they are very useful. So in order to create a stump, you will just fold your paper towel or whatever it is you're using in halves until you have kind of like a packed square, and then you simply could start rolling it towards one of the corners. All right, you don't want to just start rolling towards the middle because you're going to end up with a big roll. You do want to achieve like a pointy end, so that's why I kind of roll towards one of the corners. All right. So there you go. That's a pretty decent stump. And then what you do is you take a small piece of tape, and then the tape's purpose, it's simply to keep the paper towel in place so it's not opening up on you, and then you have your blending tool. So we're gonna set that aside for later. The second piece of paper towel that I have is, because soft pastels are a little bit messy, they do produce a lot of dust while you're working on it. It's good to have a place to rest your hand on. That way when you're working on a larger drawing, you're not smearing what you've already worked on, because that becomes a little bit frustrating and you have to go back and correct smudges. Now smudging is an actual technique, but not when you have something already detailed or a little close to being finished and you accidentally swipe your palm or the base of your hand on it, and then you have to go back and fix something. So it's a good buffering tool. You put it on so you can rest your hand, and that way you're also not getting soft pastels all over your hands, because like I mentioned, they're a little bit messy. So just to review, we have our soft pastel set, drawing surface, some paper towels, and a little bit of tape does help. All right, and that's pretty much it for the techniques that we're going to be covering today. That is all you really need. And like I mentioned, soft pastels are very affordable. There are different sets. If you wanted to experiment with drawing with the effects that you get with soft pastels, if you have sidewalk chalk, you can have a little bit of fun using these techniques outside on the ground. And they're basically kind of the same concept. It's basically a soft pastel. It's almost like chalk. It's just the pigment and the quality of the pigment is much better, and also they're not compact as much, so it's going to be a lot softer. So when you drag the soft pastel over your paper, it's going to get on the surface a lot easier and smoother. Something that, like, if you remember old chalk at school, if you're old enough for that, you know that those were really tightly packed and you had to really press onto the chalkboard. Similarly to sidewalk chalk, where the sidewalk chalk is bigger, so in the surface that you're drawing on, which is typically concrete, it's a lot rougher, so it really kind of bites into that chalk a lot easier, so you're able to get more on it. If you've ever been to festivals, you'll see artists doing amazing, just gorgeous drawings on the ground using kind of like a mixture of sidewalk chalk and really nice soft pastels, which is really cool to see. All right, so we're gonna get into some of the basic techniques, and hope you'll find them enjoyable. The first thing that I want to recommend, that if you've never tried soft pastels, is get yourself a piece of paper. I'm using white. However, soft pastels, one of the things that they do is they show up really beautifully on different color paper. So I'm going to start off with white, but I would encourage you to find different pieces of paper to experiment with. So what I recommend you do is you take each one of your soft pastels. I'm only going to do a few, and test them out and drag them gently on top of your drawing surface. Soft and then hard, do kind of like a scale, like very soft, kind of like a medium, and then a hard, and then really hard, like really work it in, and just so you get a feel for how they go on the paper, on the surface, because all papers are different. If I was working on a piece of paper that is copy paper, that would have a very tight tooth, that doesn't really grab. That is a very hot press paper, so that means it does not have a lot of texture to it, or and paper, we call it tooth. So it's not going to grab the soft pastel or the medium. Right? So do that with a few of them. If I had a brand new set and I was about to start doing a drawing, I would do it with every single one. And then also experiment with directions. So if you notice, with the yellow one, I used the edge of the stick, okay, like the thin edge, and then with this purple pink color, I used the broader edge, and that right away is basically part of the techniques that you will learn with soft pastels. So line almost becomes part of the technique when you're using this medium. So you have to figure out how or what is the best way for you to achieve a thinner line when you're working with soft pastels. Now, to be fair, they do sell soft pastel pencils, which are really handy when you're trying to do some fine detail. But for basic techniques, when you're just kind of figuring out how the medium works and how it interacts with other colors, experimenting with different strokes, it's very crucial. All right. So now we have, not only pressure is key, how much pressure you're putting onto the soft pastel stick, and then how you are applying it. Are you using the thin edge or using the broader edge? And here's something fun, and you can do this with any of the colors. We can go from that broader edge to using the whole side of the stick, and then that will give you an even broader field that you're covering. All right, and that's very important, because when you're working on a larger piece and you're trying to cover a large area, it becomes more like a painting stroke where you're filling in a color, and then you are blending it in with others. All right, so the stick itself, the way it's designed, is very versatile. Even if there's different kinds of sticks. Here's a smaller one. Well, it was a large one, but I've used it. But here they're about the same size. And if you notice, this one is round and this one is square, but you will have the same principle. You can have a thin edge, you can have a broader edge, or you can have the whole side of the stick. All right, so those are very important. And then different brands, different quality soft pastels are going to behave differently. And again, the paper will also dictate how much you're able to kind of build up. If it's a better quality paper, it'll have a better tooth. And again, tooth means that the paper is able to kind of grab onto the soft pastel easier, or better actually. Okay. So again, direction of or the orientation of how you're holding the soft pastel, thin, medium, wide, and then you have square and also round sticks, but you can achieve the same orientations with both. And then also they do have soft pastel pencils available that facilitate some of those thinner lines, but that ends up being more like a finishing detail kind of thing when you are doing a little bit more in advanced drawing. All right, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my paper. So I'm going to use over here where it's still white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to place it over my other examples. And again, you can see I'm already having getting some soft pastel on my hands, which can be a little bit messy, which is fine, which is part of the process. But I want to cover these, otherwise I want to cover the marks, otherwise I'm going to be resting my hand on them and I'm going to be smearing them all over the place, and it becomes a big mess. All right, so here we go. That's the other purpose of the paper towel. And what I'm going to do is I'll just basically draw some quick little squares here, and then that's where I will demonstrate some other application and blending techniques. All right, so the first thing, let's do a basic application. I'm going to, I like this orange color a lot. All right, so it's a nice brand new stick of soft pastel. As you can see, it has that nice thin edge, a little bit like a medium broad edge, and then we have this really wide. I know, like, this is a brand new stick, so it looks kind of precious, but don't be afraid to just break them, snap them into the size that you need. You will be able to use every single last little bit of these soft pastels because they apply. One of the things that I love about basic starter sets like this is that they don't come wrapped, and you're just able to use them. More advanced or a better quality soft pastels that will come individually wrapped, which is for the protection, because they're a little bit softer, and like the materials are a lot more expensive, and the material ends up being more of that pigment, so you do have to unwrap them so you can keep using them, which just becomes part of the process, but after a while it just becomes a little bit tedious, but you get used to it. All right, so in terms of application, I'm going to be using the broader side, the medium broad. All right, and I'm going to start with a very soft application, and as you can see right away, that's going to give me a texture, and then that texture is very much going to be dictated by the paper. Depending on the type of paper you're using, it's going to give you a very unique texture. Here I have, let's see, I have a piece of a different drawing paper, and if I draw on it, it does give me a little bit of a different tooth. So you right away you start kind of seeing the difference in paper application, or the soft pastel application on the paper, I should say. So keep an eye on that. Experiment with different types of paper. Here I want to show you this. I have a piece of brown paper that I'm using to cover a different project that I'm working on, but the way that this colors look, or the soft pastels color look on brown paper, is really cool. And as you can see, this paper is really textured, so right away it gives me a different feel than this paper. All right, so I'm going to set that aside. And now I've grabbed like a lighter orange or a nice warm yellow. So we have these two colors, and I'm going to mimic the same application, so meaning the same amount of pressure on this square with this different color. So now I have this orange, and I'm just going to call this yellow. All right, and now I've applied that there, and I'm going to follow the same application, but I'm going to overlap the orange color. And you see that? So now we are creating a nice transition. Now notice also that I've been following the same direction, and those are little, little nuances about drawing that are very important, though, that the way that you apply your medium onto your surface is very crucial, and it's very key to what you're going to achieve. All right, so pressure and direction are very, very much a part of the entire drawing and part of your technique. All right, so right now I've only been applying the soft pastels with the same amount of soft pressure and going horizontally. Okay, once I change that up, it will affect the way the color looks on the surface. All right, and let me demonstrate that a little bit here. I'm gonna use the same colors just for consistency. Okay, I'm going to this time go at an angle. I'm still going with a soft, move this over, with a soft application. But this time, instead of following the same orientation, I'm going to go crisscross. Okay, so I'm gonna create like a cross hatching pattern. So with the orange, I was going in this diagonal. With the yellow, I'm going to go kind of like a cross hatch pattern. And I'm still following the same application, which is soft. All right, so if you notice here, I'm going to hold this up. Okay, a couple of things that I want to point out here. All right, one, because here we're following the same direction, you're going to have more gaps because you're kind of following the same grain. Over here, because you're kind of crossing the grain and you're doing like a cross hatching application, you have a lot less white, as you can see, so you're covering more, and the colors automatically become more blended, as you can see. So here we have more of this kind of warm sunny orange, like a light yellow orange. Here you have the two colors, they're starting to blend a little bit, but you have more white still. So if you're looking to cover an area quick, you do want to do some of that cross hatching. If you're building up color, if I was going to introduce a third color into this area, I do want to kind of follow the same direction, so it allows those gaps to still receive the next color. That's not to say that I can't do that here, but it all depends on what effect you're going for, and that is going to be something you determine only through experimentation. The other thing that I want to point out here is all this dust. Okay, all this dust is part of the process, and like I said, soft pastels, are a little bit messy. So if I go over here and I do this, you can see how all this dust transfers over, it's useful if you want to collect it on a little piece of paper. It is actual useful soft pastel, and one of the things that you can do is you can use another stump or the back part of your stump, and you can kind of use it, like pick it up, and then you can use it as an application for blending, like a little overlay. Sometimes it gives you a nice soft look. All right, again, I can't emphasize experimentation enough. It's very, very important. All right, so let's review that. Here we have a soft application, and both colors are going in the same orientation. Here we have, again, soft application, but we're cross hatching the different colors, and you automatically achieve a different look. All right, now what I want to demonstrate in this square, I'm going to use a different color. Let's go with this color. Let's see what it is. It's a really nice color. It's more like I would describe it as like a darker mauve color, which is a kind of pinkish purple that has like a gray, so it becomes a tone of a pink or purple. So it's a color plus gray. And what I want to do here is I want to kind of break up that consistent application, and now I'm doing kind of like this, kind of like mix between like a dash and a point, and then also is almost could be like an interrupted line, but you know, so it almost becomes like pointillism or stippling. And what this is doing, not only is it adding color to the surface or to the area, but I'm also building up texture, and a different kind of texture. All right, and let's see. Let's stay with light colors here. And as you can see, I have two different colors, and I'm applying them the same way because I'm trying to achieve a different texture. I'm going to introduce a third color here. And your eyes are going to start blending these colors, and they will also start blending into each other. All right, so you get a different feel for this. And one of the really neat things about this is, let's say I wanted to do a base color first. So now I have a base color, but then on top of that base color, I want to switch my application or my technique. So here I'm following the same direction, horizontal, or it can even be vertical for that matter. But then on top of it, I'm going to do a different color with this stippling or hatching application. And I get a different technique or a different look. And let me put that up. So here we have a little bit more separated, and over here we have a kind of a mix between blended and separated. But either one is creating a really interesting technique or texture for your eyes to look at. And those are all very useful when you're trying to create a drawing. All right. So let's get into one of the most common ways of applying soft pastels, which is, you know, blending. We haven't done blending yet. We've been kind of letting the blending happen kind of organically or naturally. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply one color here on this side. I'm going to go almost right to the middle, and I'm going to put a different color here. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some contrast here, and I have this really nice dark blue. If you can't see it, it's almost purple, but it's like a navy blue. Okay, again, kind of like a soft application here, and we have two colors side by side. And I'm going to introduce my stump. Can you blend with your finger? Absolutely, you can. But as you can see in my hands, just from holding the soft pastels, they have quite a bit of dust on them from them. So the best thing to do is use a stump and use it as the blending tool that it's intended to be. All right. What you can do here is a couple different things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate this. I'm going to turn it into a little box. Okay, so I'm going to do the top and the bottom. All right, on the bottom, I will blend from one color into the other one. You know, you can do an experimentation of you going from the pink into the blue or blue into the pink, just to see what that looks like, right? Because you're going to be dragging one color into the other one. Okay, and then see what that looks like. Or we can go back and forth. All right, and you're gonna notice that the stump, while it's blending though, it's also shifting the pigment around. All right, so this one I'm going one color into the other one and back into the other color. So it does blend them, so you don't have that harder line now. As you can see, the stump does pick up quite a bit of the soft pastel. And then now this time, instead of going vertical, I'm gonna go horizontal. So I'm gonna do kind of like almost like a zigzag. All right, and it does achieve the blending, same as the bottom. It will just look a little bit different. And again, all these different techniques are very useful, and they're very subtle sometimes, like right here. But you know, they become useful in your repertoire of application of techniques. All right, and they're good to just experiment with. What I'm doing right now, it's really basically getting reacquainted with this set, and I want to have a good idea of how the colors will behave on top of each other. So when I'm working on a more advanced drawing, you know, I'll be able to kind of predict what my outcome is going to be in terms of application, because that's really useful to have. All right. The other way we can blend is not only using the stump, we can use the actual soft pastels themselves, and then you can kind of say, okay, I want this color to be more of a purple or a blue pink, so I'm going to use that as my dominant color. So I apply more of it, and then you can use the other color, the pink, to help blend it in, and vice versa. And then by simply overlapping the soft pastel, the colors become more evident. You know, just because they're soft pastels does not mean they have to go on softly. There's quite a lot of building up that can happen with the colors, especially if you want an area to be a very vibrant area, and you want it to be bold in color or saturated. So as you can see, I've created quite a bit of dust there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer it over. And now you keep noticing I bring a little piece of paper, a little scrap, and I kind of tap my paper like this. One of the things you do not want to do, and this is more like a safety concern, is you do not want to take your paper and blow on it. If you blow on it, what will eventually happen is, or inadvertently happen, is that all that dust is going to get airborne, which is, you know, not fun, getting soft pastel or any kind of dust in your eyes or breathing that in, because you're going to have a pretty bad coughing fit. Plus, while these are non-toxic, you don't want to be inhaling them. It's not good for you. It's not pleasant, trust me. I've had soft pastels in my eyes in the past, and it's not fun. All right, so as you can see, there's quite a little bit smudging that happens when you're working with soft pastels, and which is fine. It's part of the process, and you know, it's all good and all. Can you erase soft pastels? Yes. You can get specialized soft pastel erasers. They're called kneaded erasers. They're kind of like gummy erasers, and then you can erase with them, which is fine. The advantage of those is that they are kind of self-cleaning, so you can let the more you pull in them, you can get rid of the dirty surface. This is good, but for beginners, chances are if you're buying a beginner set, you will have one that comes with it, and you can use it, which is great. A regular eraser will work just fine. One of the things that you want to do, be careful with, though, is that you don't want to go back and forth necessarily. You want to go very intentionally, move into, make your mark, and as you can see, you're going to start picking some of that up, and then kind of clean your eraser, make your eraser mark, and clean your eraser quite a bit. So as you can see, here we go. We can clean it, and you can pick up quite a bit of the eraser. One of the things that I will encourage you, though, is to keep cleaning your eraser as you're working, and that will keep the eraser looking neat, especially if you're using it for other things, because if you let that the soft pastel kind of set on here, over time it just makes the eraser harder, and then less effective, and I end up throwing them away. All right, but as you can see, you can definitely erase the soft pastel, which is it's a really nice advantage. The other thing to keep in mind is that um, soft pastels kind of work with an additive and a subtractive process. And that's the last point that I'll share with you guys. So all these techniques I've been adding. When I started introducing the eraser to take away some of the color, that's a subtractive process, which is also another technique because I can use it to create texture. As you can see, that the eraser itself will give me a texture, or it becomes part of the way, the technique of adding the soft pastel or removing some of it. But either way, it becomes part of the process. All right, friends. I hope you found this very basic introduction to soft pastels and some application techniques useful. Please connect with us on social media at Latino Arts Inc. Again, our handle on social media is at Latino Arts, and also we are on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. And please visit our website for upcoming programming. Our website is at latinoartsinc.org, or latinoartsinc.org, I should say. And if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. And we hope you found this tutorial informational and useful. And if you do create anything using soft pastels, please share it with us on social media. We love seeing what our friends are doing out there, how they're staying creative, and stay in touch. And please be safe. I want to take this opportunity to remind all of you to please continue to wear your mask out in public, practice social distancing, and please wash your hands often, especially if you are in public areas. Again, I can't reiterate the importance of continuing to wear your mask out in public. We're not through this COVID-19 situation yet. Our numbers continue to spike. And for your safety, for the safety of your coworkers, friends, and family, and those those people in our communities, they are immune compromised. It's very important for all of us to do our part. With that, be safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.